hold. You gotta give yourself soul control. It's a power no one can ever take away. You gotta rise up, face your fears today. Rise up, face your fears, look them straight in the eye. Rise up, fear ain't no joke, this you can't deny. Shake off the demons, lighten your load, give yourself soul control. It's a power no one can ever take away. Rise up, face your fears today. Come on with me now. Rise up, don't let it take hold. Rise up, take self-control. Rise up, get the power from within. Rise up, fight the good war and you will win. Rise up, it comes from above. Rise up, it comes from God's heavenly love. Rise up, don't let it take hold. Rise up, give yourself soul control. Rise up, it comes from the power from within. Fight the good fight and you will win. It comes from up above. Rise up, God's heavenly love. It's a power no one can ever take from you. No, no, no. Just rise up, face your fears, and see what you can be. Here we go. Now rise up. Yeah. Rise up. I say in the morning now when you're not feeling good. Rise up. Before you lay your head down, just rise up. Let it come over you now. You gotta rise up. Come on now. Face your fears. Rise up. Hey, 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 hey. You gotta rise up. I'm talking about you. I'm talking about you. Rise up. I'm talking about you. You gotta rise up. Hey, you gotta rise up. Hey, hey, you gotta rise up. Hey, hey, you gotta rise up.
All right, Danny Cox, everyone. Danny Cox. Woohoo! Oh my goodness. Wow. As Marion just said to me, I think we can all go home now. So we will go home, but first we're going to rise up and we're going to meet those fears and we're going to set ourselves free, because that's what we're talking about today with the Untethered Soul. This beautiful book, this transformational, this slightly scary book by Michael Singer is all about personal transformation, and that is one of the main aspects of Unity teachings. It's about changing and transforming ourself. In fact, it's the journey beyond your small self. You know, that egoic mind, that egoic self that thinks that that's all that it's about, and it's always taking care of and protecting itself and worrying about itself and worrying what other people think about it. That self, we're going beyond it. And so today we're going to rise up. And I absolutely love that song, Danny. And I'm glad that you all took it literally and you started rising up. That was a good thing. That was a really good thing. And so today, as we focus on rising up out of our fear, what we're going to realize is that we're releasing also the complement of fear, which is pain. Now, when you feel fear, don't you always feel pain? I mean, who feels fear and feels joy, right? I mean, I think that fear and pain are kind of like brothers or sisters, if you will, to the experience. Fear is the feeling we have, and pain is the residual from it. And we walk around with so much fear and pain that we don't even realize we have. And you might think, well, maybe you do, Myra, but I don't. But what Michael Singer tells us is that we all walk around with a lot of it, and we don't even realize that it's a part of our living experience. So I was thinking about this, and I thought, let me share with you a story from the Sufi tradition with one of our favorite characters, Nasruddin, who is sometimes wise, sometimes not, but he's always interesting. So I want to tell you this story about Nasruddin. You see, one night he was walking home all alone. It was dark. He was tired, and he realized that as he was walking, he had just a little bit farther to go. And he became very aware of a group of men's voices that were murmuring behind him. His mind started to wander, and he started to say, oh no, what if they're waiting for me to get home? What if they want to rob me of everything I have? And worse yet, what if they do me harm? Well, you can imagine what happened to Nasruddin, right? He became very fearful. His heart started to jump. I mean, he was getting nervous. He lost his breath. He was very anxious. He started to fret. And so he went into his home, and he was pacing back and forth, and he was looking to see how close the men were. Well, he worked himself up into such a frenzy that as the men were approaching on the road, he went and he stood in the doorway with his hands up, and he said, fine, take everything you want, but don't harm me, please. Well, these innocent people were a little worried about Nasruddin. And they said, sir, do you need some help? What do you mean, do I need some help? He said. I know what you're up to. And so the men again, even more concerned, offered then to take him to a doctor. So you see, I mean, I think this story is absolutely hilarious, but I think there's a little bit of Nasruddin in all of us, don't you agree? I mean, I can just play a few times in my mind where I go through that experience and I think something is going on and nothing is happening. I am so positive I know what other people are thinking and feeling about me because I'm so important, to everybody in the universe, that I work up this big deal about nothing, and I get myself worked up in a tizzy. Have you ever done that? Because so many of us are always the center of the universe to all people at all times. I mean, it's amazing that we function, but we do that. I know, it's astonishing. And when we get into that space, it's fairly common, unfortunately. It's fairly common that we work ourselves up with our fears and our anxieties, that we really don't even give it much attention because it becomes normal. And when we do that, whether we take a big jaunt down that road or whether we take a short hop down that road, what happens is that we suffer. We do not feel in those moments the presence of God within us. We do not feel the presence of God around us. The world within us becomes small, and the world around us closes in. Michael Singer, in his book, talks a little bit about our suffering and the result of fear, and he tells us this. He says, if you really want to be free from suffering, then the prerequisite is that you have to decide that you don't want to suffer anymore. You must decide that you want to enjoy your life and that there is no reason for stress, inner pain, or fear. Every day, every single day, we bear a burden that we should not be bearing. We fear that we're not good enough or that we'll fail. We experience insecurity, anxiety, self-consciousness, and misery. We fear that people will turn on us, take advantage of us, or stop loving us. All of these things burden us tremendously. And so when we think about that, we can find ourselves in that list, can't we? We can find ourselves. And so today I want to take some time to help us have a greater awareness of how we carry those thoughts and how we burden ourselves with those thoughts. And I want you to look at how you carry those without even realizing it. And then you create the great big story all around it. And you've gone too far. And it's all in your mind. And, when I think about this, I realize that if we become aware of it, then we can make better choices. We can choose to have freedom. We can make decisions to alleviate this old pattern. But what I want to tell you is that it's not your fault that you have these automatic reactions to things. And I think that's really good news, because the first thing I tend to do with myself is I say, why do I do that to me? And then I hear my mother's voice, what's wrong with you? And I want to correct that. But it's wonderful to realize that this is a human condition that we all have, and it starts from the time that we're really little. In fact, the wonderful author, motivational speaker Joe Dispenza said in a recent article with Unity magazine, he said that by the time we're 35, 95% of who we are in terms of our perceptions and our beliefs and our old memory habits, our emotional reactions, all of that stuff, he said by the time we're 35, which I frankly barely remember, but by the time we're 35, 95% of what we think and feel in those ways is already set in us. He says it's like a subconscious computer program from which we're always operating out of or working to either clean up or alleviate, or we're just trying to stop that if we can. So imagine that. And what this means is if you're not 35 yet, you have time to not let that stuff set in stone. That's really good news. And if you're over 35, like a few of us here, then you have time to rework that program, which explains to me why it's sometimes a lot of work and a lot of commitment to undo that subconscious programming. Eckhart Tolle, the great teacher, talks about it in the same way, but he calls it working with our pain bodies. And Michael Singer, when he talks about it, he calls these things, these programs, these ideas and perceptions, he calls them our inner thorns. And so that is this wonderful image. And he suggests that we have these inner thorns. And imagine that that inner thorn took form and that it was sticking out on your inner forearm. So if you put your arm out, stick your arm out, and imagine you got a great big old thorn on it. Okay? So that is your inner issues. Have you ever had issues? Those are your inner issues, your inner pain, your inner stuff that you get triggered about along the themes that you have. And so you have this thorn that is now taking form out here. And what are you going to do? Well, first of all, you're going to try to not poke yourself, right? You've got to figure out how to wear clothing that doesn't get bothered by the thorn. You've really got to be very careful, and you've got to help people remember, I've got a thorn. Don't touch me there. Don't bother me there. And sometimes that thorn of ours, we whack people with it, whether we want to or not, right? Because it's our thorn, and we're so about that we don't care sometimes who we whack with that thorn. And so you can see what happens with our inner stuff that we carry. Oh, and God forbid you try to get a good night's sleep. Oh my gosh. So this is the stuff that we carry around. And I was thinking about these inner thorns, and I was thinking about one of my favorite TV shows, and I swear everybody on there has a flaming inner thorn. Have you ever seen the show Ray Donovan? Oh, good. Well, don't watch it. Don't watch it. Because I'll tell you why. The main character and his family, they have so many thorns on their arms. I don't know how they manage. And I don't even know why I watch it. I don't know why I would think I would relate on any level. But that aside, they all have their thorns, and they're all rubbing up on each other, and they're all triggering each other, and then they're trying to help each other with their thorns, and it's a great big mess. We would call it in modern vernacular a lot of dysfunction. But that's what goes on when we have our thorns, right? And we get to a point as spiritual beings where we decide we don't want to live protecting, being fearful, trying to control the universe because we have our thorns. We want to have a different life. And so let me share with you some more words from our wise soul, Michael Singer. And he tells us this. He says, wise beings do not want to remain a slave to their inner thorns. They permit the world to be what it is instead of being afraid of it. And they wholeheartedly participate in life, but not for the purpose of using life to avoid themselves. If life does something that causes a disturbance inside of them, instead of pulling away, they let it pass like the wind. After all, things happen every day that cause inner disturbances. And at any moment, any of us can feel frustrations, anger, fears, jealousy, insecurities, or embarrassment. And when we feel those things, if we want to be free, then we have to stop fighting with them. And we allow the thorn to release and be. So there is a huge key. The truth is that when we're not aware, the thorn that we experience and the thorns, they completely run our lives. But we have a choice. We don't have to let that part of us that we think is so strong, but in reality is weak because it is not of spirit, it is not of truth. We do not have to allow it to run our lives. We can remember that from the divinity within us, these thorns can be released into the nothingness from which they came. And we can stand by and let those thorns, those thoughts and those feelings move through us like a gentle wave which we do not cling to or give energy to. And we can allow ourselves over time to let them simply fall away and heal. When I was a young kid, my sister died. I was 9 and she was 8. Her name was Mary, and she had leukemia. She was sick for 3 years. And as the oldest child in my mom's family, I watched the pain that happened as my mom took care of Mary. And I remember the day that Mary died so clearly. And what happened after that day is that when I became a mom, when I started having children, I developed this thorn on my arm, which was a terrible fear that what if my children would die? What if something would happen to a child of mine? And so in my mind at night, there were times when I couldn't sleep. I would just have this terrible, horrible panic inside, knowing that I could not control the world, knowing that if this would happen, somehow I would have to survive it, and I couldn't even imagine how that would be possible. But I allowed that thorn to be present, and I stopped panicking about it. And I did something different. I started focusing on my mother's strength, and I started feeling compassion and amazement and wonder for her resilience. And then as I got older, I volunteered with a friend of mine who was a nurse at a hospital. And we together ran a support group for parents that had terminally ill children. It was one of the hardest and one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. The ability to look in the eyes of parents that knew their children were going to die, and to be love, compassion, and wonder for them while I was feeling my own fear was a very transformational time for me. And then after that, when I became a therapist, I met family after family, parent after parent, that lost a loving child by accident or by tragedy or by choice. And again, I watched that fear in me bubble up, but it didn't have energy anymore. It was only compassion. It was only peace. And it was only love. This is the option that we all have in our lives. We can take our fears and our pain, these thorns that run us, and we can either let them wash through us, and we can be with them with kindness and mercy in our hearts, and we can let them go. Or we can actively work to heal them so they no longer run us anymore. We have a choice, and it's always ours. And so today, I invite you to be willing to look at those thoughts and look at those ideas that are the thorns for you in your life. And I invite you to make a conscious choice. Make a choice to not allow that thorn to run you. Make a choice to live from your divine nature and allow healing to happen. And as you make that choice, something miraculous will happen. You will heal and you will be set free. And those things that cause you great fear, those things that cause you great pain, will no longer have the energy to do so anymore. You see, we all want to live free, don't we? We all want to live in peace. And so Michael Singer, he tells us that the first thing we do is we make a decision to stop giving those things energy. And I say the next thing we do is we treat them like they're stars. Every time that we realize that we're giving one of those fears, one of those thoughts energy, we make the choice to either let it go or to heal it. And it's like a star, it's like a light, a moment of illumination where we choose yes for our highest good. And then the next time it comes up and we choose yes and we make a new choice, it's like another star. And again and again and again. And it's like stars in the sky where we choose over and over and over. We choose to live in the light. And the light of who we are, the light of our peace, the light of our freedom, it shines so brightly that the darkness of fear, the darkness of pain, has no power over us. And we move forward in new freedom, in new ease, and new peace. This is my prayer for you as it is for myself. It is my prayer for all of us. Let us move forward in this freedom now. Let us choose well and release the thorns from within our being, and let us go forward as bright lights of illuminated Christ energy today and always. Thank you, and God bless.